I know most of you are going to disagree with this. A big percentage of you are going to laugh. You're going to banter me. You're going to say I'm crazy, that I've gone radio, that is the heat got to me? Is it too hot in England right now? What has happened to Terry's brains? I get that's going to be what your thoughts are. I know that's the angle that you are going to come from. But for me, I've spoke about this for the better part of a decade, studying what the teams at the top 10 years ago, the teams that have maintained their professionalism, their quality, their authority, the sides that have rebuilt teams that have little drops and then come back fighting. When you study them, when you watch what they do, they follow a very basic set of principles that all businesses, sports teams, universities, schools, and even more importantly, homes, that's it, homes, mum, dad, kids, homes, follow. And you need to have these principles in place to ensure that things operate correctly. And I always give the example of being at home. And I'm going to go into why in a moment, but hit the like button. Make sure you are all subscribing to the channel right now. Turn that bell notification on. And don't just press the bell, press all notifications. Otherwise, YouTube don't send you a notification. It's ridiculous. It really, really is. So get that done. But Manchester United have a very good chance, if they adhere to these principles, of getting back to the top. And I stand on that, and you can take it to the bank. For me, I speak about home life. If you want your children, and there's never a perfect world scenario, but if you want your children to be well behaved at school, okay, having a routine, them going to bed at the right time, eating the right foods at the right time, showering at the right time, making their beds, teaching them to do chores, making them do their homework, making them respect authority and their elders. These are all what good to great parents do. Okay. Now, we're all humans. We all make mistakes. We don't do things perfectly all the time. Least of all myself. Business. If you want a sales team, if you want a admin team, the HR team to operate at a high level, the bosses, the middle management, the senior members of staff, the MDs, the CEO, from the middle out of an organization, the standards have to be in practice. Now, for me, if I walk into a business that's trying to sell cars, that's their ultimate goal, is to sell cars to people. If you walk in and see bins overflowing, the toilets are dirty, everyone's desks are a mess, you can bet your bottom dollar they are not achieving either their targets or they could exceed them further. You know they're not operating at the highest levels just by the untidiness, the poor cleanliness, the laziness that sits within the organization. You can see it. There are very simple telltale signs. When I used to work in the banking network, I turned up to a branch to assess it, and the ATM outside was dirty, staff room was a mess, branch looked like sort of grotty. You could bet your bottom dollar that was always a branch. You go, well, you look at it, mystery shop scores are bad, queue times are bad. Very rarely did the high-performing branches look a mess, were untidy, etc., etc. The same thing comes to football. I'm bringing it back to football now. I'm giving you a base here, the football. A couple of things have been said today which we can hold the club to account on. So you may not believe them, but you can hold them to account. And one of them, and I think it's maybe the most important thing that I have personally read about the club in a long, long time. And I want to read this out to you here. This was from Ben Jacobs, who, of course, has good connections at Manchester United, who says, don't underestimate Ruben Amorim versus players. He has been given the same sort of mandate by Omar Barada and Jason Wilcock to put his foot down. He says, for example, he gave when he was at Sporting, and the Sporting legend Ismail Samani returned, and Amorim felt like the player treated it as a nonchalant act and to sort of wind down his career. He was immediately kind of demoted to the B team, and despite the initial outrage, Amorim was backed and the player left. And he gives that example, and it's important because Amorim cannot have authority against ill discipline, bad diet, lateness, players not working hard enough, players making consistent mistakes, players not training to the right level, agents and the players looking for new clubs, agents and players leaking information. The manager has no authority if the center of the club, the board, the key decision makers, don't allow him to yield the power. The first time we really saw this power be diminished from the head coach or manager was Jose Mourinho. And we still have subjective debates about this as opposed to objective, and it's exhausting. When he wanted, rightly or wrongly, Martial and Pogba gone, the board backing the players set us back the better part of a decade now, because we still haven't fully eradicated player power. They have controlled that dressing room ever since. If they didn't play well, if they down tools, whatever it may be, they won. They always came out on top. They'd get a new chance with a new manager. They'd have a really good season and get a big new deal. And we've all at times been suckered in by this, myself included. I'm not sitting here pretending to be perfect. I never got it wrong. Of course I did. I'm a human being. But we've learned. So the manager being given this power and this control has to be backed by the fans, irrespective of who the players that he yields against. We have to drop our subjectivity. I don't want Ruben Amorim to have this power, by the way. I want the head coach or manager to. Can you see the distinction? The second most important part of what I heard today, this was during his conversation with Mark Goldbridge. And I want to read this out to you as well, because I think it's very, very important. I'm going to scroll down and find this because I do seem to have lost it. But I think it is very, very key indeed. It says, this is what he said. Brentford have had a grand standard of 70 million in relation to Brian Mbeumo. So Ben Jacobs confirming exactly what Fabrizio said 4 to 5 weeks ago. They wanted 70 million plus is what Fabrizio said. Manchester United understand that this won't be the fee. Brentford are playing games as well. So Brentford, maybe knowing they would never get Man United to pay that amount, still set it as a goal to create this vacuum and this delay. Because why? They're notorious for being difficult to deal with, but they get praised for it. Whenever we were about to enter these negotiations, everyone said, whoa, they're hard to deal with. Why? Because they do this. And Man United rolling over and having their bellies tickled was stupid. Now, it turns out the actual third bid, if it comes in, should come in, will be in the region. That's a very similar price to what the second bid was. But it's just about the add-ons. It's how the add-ons are going to be achieved. Brentford want them to be slightly easier than Man United have initially put out. But the fee will end up being somewhere in the region of high 50s to low 60s fixed, which is still below this kind of figure they've been pushing for 5 weeks. There was another element that came out, and I want to read this to you. It says Jason Wilcox wants to stay disciplined this summer to change the perception of Manchester United. They don't want to give what clubs want straight away and appear to be pushovers. And I cannot I know it isn't sexy. I know it isn't exciting. I know it doesn't make you can't banter your rivals with it, because it isn't. It feels a little bit meh. It feels a little beige. It feels a little bit, well, what does that matter? But this has been one of the reasons that we've been ruined for years. And I don't blame John Murtough directly. I don't even blame Woodward directly. It was a combination that all stemmed from the Glazers. We were pushovers. We didn't negotiate well enough. We weren't difficult to handle. We were a laughingstock. And for me, you can go back and watch videos from the past 10 years, whether it be on Full-Time Devils, the first ever TV appearance I had on Channel 5 News. I spoke about this stuff again and again and again. If we're looked at as clowns, if we're looked at as a joke by other football clubs, you can bet your bottom dollar in the footballing world that seeps into our dressing room, we're not serious. We don't behave right. We don't operate like other clubs at the highest level. How do you think you could then convince players who, by the way, have player power issues? How do you think we could convince them to run through brick walls? How do you think we could convince them to give their very best in each and every single game if we don't give our best as a football club in every operation that we deal in? And I go back to the original point. If I try and teach my son to not eat junk every day, to make his bed, to clean his football boots when he comes home, to speak to his elders with respect, to respect his teachers, if I'm telling him to do this, But at the same time, my actions are the complete and utter opposite at all times. And again, I make mistakes. I'm not perfect. I'm not pretending to be. I'm going to struggle to convince him that doing the right thing is correct. Because he was, hang on a minute, you're telling me to do this. You're giving me ironically, you're giving me some fruit to eat, but you're sitting there eating a McDonald's. You're telling me that fizzy drinks are like poison, but there you are sitting there drinking a fizzy drink, Daddy. That's what my 5-year-old boy would say to me. Or at 5, he'd probably be a bit confused. By the time he gets to 10, he's going to start to rebel. This works in every facet of the world: family, school, business, sports. I don't know what the saying is. I want to say monkey see, monkey do. Or is it puppy see, puppy do? I don't know. Right? There's a saying. You'll all remember it more than I do. But this for me is really, really positive news. It isn't sexy. It's not a headline that anyone's going to care about too much. But it's these small principles that I'm going to hold the club to. And I believe we're going to make mistakes. So again, if your counter is, but we fuck this up and we fuck that up. Yeah, we will. We're humans. Everyone running the club's a human. But if we stick to these principles and we as fans hold them to them, a little inch there gained, a little inch there gained, another inch there gained, we will become a major threat on the pitch again in the future. Everything is going to take time. But this is one of the best bits of news I've read about Man United in a long time. But do me a favor and hit the like and the share button. Make sure you're subscribing. And we'll see you all again very, very soon. Peace.